Hey everyone, welcome to PunkCast. My name is William Maxwell. I'm a student of Web3 and the owner of Punk9527. CryptoPunks are 10,000 uniquely generated characters stored permanently on the Ethereum blockchain. No punk is the same. This is a show dedicated to celebrating the punks behind the punk. My hope for this podcast is that we capture the essence of the punk culture, elevate the brand and the individual behind the punk. One last thing. Projects discussed on the show is not financial advice. Crypto and NFTs are a volatile and risky asset class. Please always do your own research. Other than that, let's go. I'm pretty excited to have our first ever guest on PunkCast. He is the current owner of Punk1641, 3 Atty, Frown, Mole, and Orange Knitted Cap. He's the head of growth at Mycelium and advisor to tokens.com. Mr. Joshuad.eth in the house. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Doing? How you doing, mate?
Good. What have you been up to, mate? It's been a while since we met in person, right? Since New York.
Yeah, just hitting the conference circuit and just enjoying the crypto vibes this year. Although it's pretty hard to be super excited about the space, but I'm excited about the building in the space, but the vibes in the space are a little rough here because of the macroeconomic backdrop. But we're out here building.
Awesome. Let's talk about something a bit more fun then, more so about you and I guess your whole CryptoPunk journey. Maybe you can just give everybody a brief introduction to you and I guess your background and how you sort of got here.
Yeah, currently I work at Growth of Mycelium. They were one of the early Chainlink node operators. We run a good chunk of Chainlink's nodes today, and we've built out some derivative products on Arbitrum and have facilitated like $1.5 billion in transactions through our contracts. So we're pretty proud of that. Team out of Australia. I'm also an advisor at tokens.com on a part-time basis. They're a Canadian publicly listed company, actually one of the first metaverse companies to go public in Canada. And there we look at kind of just helping brands understand the space. We have a big staking portfolio. We own a bunch of land in Decentraland, and we build out play-to-earn gaming stuff. So that I just work, awesome. In the evenings here and there on helping them understand what's going on. But that keeps me busy.
Awesome. And you're Canadian. You studied in Canada as well. What did you? What was your sort of background with? So Toronto based, and what was your sort of background? Was it sort of business always oriented? Or,
No, I was in ad tech. When I discovered crypto, I was in ad tech, and I had an engineer that worked with me, and I was asking about our products. And I was like, because I always loved, I was a sales guy, and I always loved to understand how things worked so that when I talk to clients, I'd know what I'm talking about. And he said, what do you think of Ethereum? And I was like, well, this is like 2015, 2016. And in Toronto, Ethereum was created in Toronto. Vitalik was from Toronto. So we had this really early kind of ecosystem of meetups and people getting together to talk about and discuss Ethereum. And there was this entire house in Toronto called The Central that was dedicated to crypto innovation and people. And so Anthony Diorio rented it out and people came. And the early crypto people like Vitalik were teenagers. And so this house was like kind of their refuge. And it's where they talked about, the early beginnings of Ethereum. There's actually a bar here at ETH Toronto I was at, and Diorio was like, yeah, in that corner over there in that sea is when I met Vitalik for the first time 10 years ago, and we started talking about Ethereum. So Toronto has like just these roots, and that's how I discovered it, is going to the early meetups and understanding, what was going on. So blessed to be from Toronto to have that happening in my city.
That's crazy, man. So, so what was it about when you heard it, when they started talking about Ethereum smart contracts? It would have been pretty abstract back then. Like, what made you?
Not really. Like, I actually connected with it right away. But you're right, it is abstract. I mean, people thought like it would disrupt DocuSign back then. And the wallet that you had the wallet tab, and then you had a contract tab, and it was called a Mist wallet. And so you actually had to have the entire blockchain history downloaded. I think it was like 70 gigabytes back then. And there's like 70 million blocks that you had to have downloaded and maintained. And every time you opened your wallet, it downloaded the rest of the blocks that it needed to be in the current state. And yeah, I mean, the contract tab was really interesting. And it wasn't until the Punks contract that I actually got to use it for the first time. And that was, yeah, really exciting. It's one of the first Web3 applications that ever existed.
So, okay, so let's maybe delve into that then. Was CryptoPunks your first NFT then, or did you buy something else before that?
No. So it was my first NFT. I bought it 1900 days ago. And how it worked back then is you'd have the full blockchain history downloaded in your Mist wallet, and then you added the contract, the 18 decimals, and some other data point, and you added that to Mist wallet, and then it opened up all the functions that the contract had. And this was in the Larva Labs GitHub, because on Larva Labs in the early days, you didn't have the connect your wallet button. That didn't exist. All that existed on Larva Labs was a picture of the punk, and I think its traits and just an ownership, who owned it at that moment. That was it. Like the bid button and the ask button or the offer for sale, that didn't exist at the time. You actually had to do that through the functions in the contract itself. And so, yeah, I started interacting with those functions of like placing bids. And, up to that point, you had the DAO ICO and you had the ICO boom, but you had nothing that you could actually do with this technology in terms of using it. And that was like kind of the first, like, wow, this is cool. And I was having drinks and I was like, geez, digital media on the blockchain, that's a really big idea space. And sure enough, 4 years later, it hit. Big time.
It's crazy.
2017. This is 2017. So this would have been the Punks contract dropped on end of June 2017.
That's right.
And then they did a second version of it because there was a bug. And then, I started interacting with it July 9th of 2017. So about a week or two later.
So just maybe a sidetrack here, but just out of curiosity, back then, if there wasn't MetaMask, how did you get ETH onto your wallet? And then was there like another wallet that you were sort of describing there where you had to download everything to the node and go through there?
Yes, the Mist wallet. Yes, the Mist wallet was like your Ethereum wallet. It was essentially what MetaMask is today. And then you had to have an exchange account on like a Quadriga CX, which ended up going bankrupt, but like a Coinbase, right? And you could wire your ETH to it.
And then you had to be a little bit technically savvy to go through GitHub and all these other bits and pieces to
yes.
Buy it. So it wasn't.
I was actually
easy.
Talking to Straybits, who got the aliens at first, and he said, and I remember it was just a big image. So you actually had to zoom in the image and like look at each individual punk and be like, wow, those are special, or these are special. Like it wasn't explicitly shown all the traits right at the beginning. So you kind of had to understand what you were looking at and find the interesting punks in GitHub and then go and claim them. And that's what the original was actually claiming. We didn't call it minting. It wasn't called a drop. It was called claim because they were given away for free. And then I showed up just as they were all claimed. I wanted them for free. Trust me. Because I wanted free things. This was like the airdrop era. So it's like Omise Go. If you remember OMG, they did an airdrop. So everyone was like looking for airdrops. And I was like, oh, I gotta get one of these because they're cool. But yeah, I started buying them. Crazy. So my claim is as an early buyer.
You are super early. I think anybody in my mind that was in before 2021 is like an OG, right? But then how did you discover CryptoPunks back then? Like, I mean, because I know they had a couple, not magazine articles, but write-ups on them on Mashable and a few other sort of places. But how did you come across CryptoPunks for you to sort of go down the rabbit hole there?
Yeah, great question. I don't remember. It might have been that Mashable article. Okay. I think it surfaced through my Blockfolio app in the news tab. I think that's where I saw it. Or it could have been a YouTube streamer, but
okay.
one of those two
But at the
spots.
time, were you just on your own experimenting and going down, or were there other people around you that were also buying up CryptoPunks in your sort of circle?
No, I've always been in like my circle or my community, always been the leader kind of pushing this thing forward. I had a mentor at the very beginning, but he wasn't interested in punks or the ICO era. He just was an ETH miner, and that was exciting for him. So, but he got me definitely started at a technical level, or I would have never known what to do. But as for my circle of friends, I definitely pushed it forward.
And I'm really jealous. Like, who knows what I was doing in 2017? I was probably still at a corporate desk job or something, right? Ethereum and CryptoPunks had even crossed my mind.
Just living the dream, Max. Well,
I know. But no, that's a cool story, man. Just having a look at your collection, or your previous sort of collection. Maybe we can go into that now. But why have you sort of chosen, I guess, the punks that you've got? I think you've got here 8 sort of punks, 3 sort of police hats, and 5 orange knitted caps. Like, I'm a orange knitted cap maxi as well, but was there a reason why you sort of selected these punks over others, or those particular traits over others?
Funny enough, I didn't really know what I was looking at, and the first thing that came to my mind was it was like kind of like a bit of a cops and robbers theme, where I had some police punks and then some knitted cap punks for the robbers. But it's come to like just be the knitted caps culturally to me became more important than anything. And I just fell in love with them. And so yeah, that was the original kind of thinking. And that's why I got the robber mask police punk as well, because he was also kind of a robber with a gold chain. That was my initial thinking. And then I always found the guy with the glasses with the police punk to be kind of like, straight edge, clean shaven. Like he was a like a straight edge kind of police guy. And then I don't know, the VR guy was just funny. I was like, yo, he's doing police work in the metaverse or something with that VR goggles. Then my crew, I absolutely love them. So that was the initial thinking when I first like glanced at it. Because you had to have a bit of a theme when collecting these, or else you would have just collected random stuff. And there was a lot of like uninteresting punks there, but I always thought the knitted caps stuck out. So
like, I'm a big fan. When you say culturally sort of relevant for you, like, what does that sort of mean?
Well, the knitted beanie is like pretty iconic. Like Justin Bieber wears the knitted beanie. Other people wear a knitted beanie. Like now my son wears a knitted beanie because it looks like his dad and looks like his CryptoPunk. So,
it's super cool.
And mate, G Money got probably the most famous knitted cap, which is one of the
ape.
The apes. And then obviously Philly Tuna had the alien knitted cap. Like it's just a trait that transcends the entire value stack of punks.
No, I'm with you. I love it as well. And I think just to name drop a few more, but I think Kevin Rose has got a zombie knitted cap. I think Gary V's got one as well in the bag.
Yeah.
AJ Vaynerchuk as well. So there's a few people that have a knitted cap. I think there's only 416 of these knitted caps out there. So, mate, and I'm just looking at the prices that you bought your 8 punks for. They were sort of, 0.35, 0.4 ETH, sort of half an ETH each, sort of oscillating between $500 and $900 back then. What were you sort of thinking at that time? Was that a lot of money for you back then? I mean, that would have been a lot of money for me to spend on digital pictures, but how did you sort of rationalize and justify it back in 2017?
Yeah, in 2017, you're buying like ETH for like $10. So, it was, or this would have been like 2015, 2016, you're buying ETH for $10. 2017, obviously, it started to go on a run. That's why the prices are expensive, like they are, relatively more expensive. So I had a bit of it. I had some ETH back then. And so these prices weren't crazy, but I still in my mind was like, I think this could be a huge speculative market. I was like, man, people could really speculate around these images. We didn't use the words NFT back then. Like NFT was not what it is today, where it's like, oh, clear cut, like individual asset. It was like, no, like I actually thought this could be a really interesting market. And that's why I bought them. And so, yeah, the prices were good. I had to bid on them. So I placed all those bids, and then it took a while for the sellers to actually sell them. Some of them I bought at the bid, like you can see the one for 0.25 ETH. I'm pretty sure that was when I bidded, where I started just buying at the ask. But yeah, it was a lot to spend back then, to be honest with you. I didn't want to get rid of my ETH on these because I thought these were a complete punt.
It was a good bet. But so basically, if you bought ETH at $10 in 2015, these are like a couple bucks for you each, right? Really, if you were in 2007 when it came to 2017.
Yeah, but you get traded out of your ETH really easy, so
I know.
It becomes more scarce and scarce and scarce. So yeah.
No, that's cool, man. And then I think, and just I guess another point here as well is just around this concept of digital ownership and digital property rights. I think that was a really tough challenge for me when I sort of started in the space. And you were in 2017. Was it easy for you to sort of go, this makes a lot of sense, or did you have some sort of battles with that to sort of jump in and start buying this up, or was this something that you could relate to collectively?
No, I was standing in the middle of my room, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I said, man, there's going to be images on the blockchain. Like, that is so cool. And you could own like part of an image. I'm like, this is the next big thing. This is serious. I knew right away what I was looking at, but nothing happened for 4 years. The problem there was no OpenSea. So there was Punks in June. CryptoKitties came in October, and that's when the blockchain, the first time that Ethereum actually hit its transaction like limit, whereas there was a bunch of people transacting and actually like stopped the blockchain because there was so much transactions. I shouldn't say stop the blockchain, but it was just the blocks were filled and you couldn't get a transaction through, and then your gas prices spiked. And so that was like the first time that everyone's like, whoa. And it was just because the CryptoKitties contract required you to call it, and a bunch of people did it. But it's still like 1,000 daily active users. And then OpenSea apparently launched in that December. So June, October, CryptoKitties, and then December was OpenSea. And so none of that infrastructure existed. So it was like, yes, this is going to be huge, but at the same time, no one else was doing anything in NFTs. Of course, I've come to learn that rare Pepes existed, and the Pepe meme, shout out to that crowd. But those aren't really the NFTs that we see today. The model we see today is the 10,000, the traits, the uniqueness, and even curio cards, which was apparently just before Punks. There's copies of the same art, right? And so it's not, there might be 50 NFTs of one version. It's not the uniqueness that you see in the 10,000 collection. Like, this collection is thorough. It is well thought out. The contract was built by computer scientists. It's really well done. Long before the concept existed.
No, I'm with you. It's an absolute work of art, and I think the collections that you mentioned before. I guess the only difference here is it was the first identity play. So everything is really around identity with 10K profile picture projects now. And I think, when we're looking back in 10 years' time and we're looking back and sort of saying, where did this all start from? It's all going to lead back to CryptoPunks. And so definitely with you there on cultural and historical significance there.
Yeah.
But being able to pick out that early, man.
One thing I might add to this, one thing I admire about the Punks collection is if you look at the deltas between the most common traits and the most rare traits, you have this huge spread between traits in terms of valuations. And across the unique traits, they've actually held valuations really well. And then you have some outliers like hoodie punks, which aren't the rarest trait, but they're iconic. And so then they trade up higher, like, by hundreds of ETH higher. If you look at most NFTs out there, even the Bored Apes, like the delta between a floor ape and even some more rare traits of the apes is not like super big, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the Punks collection is distributed and it has unique valuations at every trait. Every individual trait has a unique valuation. And that is something that we don't see. And it just speaks to the thoroughness of this collection, how iconic each trait is, and just the market structure overall of the collection is quite impressive. And you don't see this in any other collection that I've seen. So I think we miss, we look at, we get really excited about the traits, but like it's the market structure within it that is very well defined.
Totally, I'm with you on that. That's an interesting point. I think the disparity between, a really rare punk versus a floor punk is huge versus, I guess, any other collection that we can sort of see out there.
Yeah.
But just my brain's running around because I'm just trying to put myself back into 2017 and wondering what it was like. Like, so you got your CryptoPunk. Where did you hang out? I mean, was Discord up and running back then? Twitter, was it sort of vibrant with a whole bunch of NFT degens? Like, what was that sort of vibe like back then? Like, how did you guys hang out?
It definitely wasn't super vibrant. What I remember is honestly Reddit was the big play back then. Twitter was just kind of like noisy. But I didn't really hang out with the punks community until 2020 when things started to get crazy, and then I started to get into it. I think I was in the punks Discord back then at one point, but I just didn't like vibe with the ecosystem at the beginning. I didn't really know what I was looking at, and there's the other shiny things in the room, like ICOs were booming, and so I was more into like projects like that than the NFT stuff, just because the ecosystem wasn't quite there yet. But gotcha. That's early days. It would have been really niche people looking at these, but
yeah. Gotcha. I think that sort of resonates with me a little bit as well. When I first got into crypto, I think I came in through altcoins and IDOs, and that was mostly done on Telegram. And then I sort of found my way into sort of NFTs, but I sort of find that the NFT community is very different from the altcoin community,
absolutely.
Right?
And the difference is like the altcoin community was chasing dreams, basically. Like, wow, the blockchain's going to do this, the blockchain's going to do that, IBM's doing this, and whereas the NFT community is very pure on like culture and, discussing the nuances of theirs and like, hey, I love yours for this reason and you love mine for this reason. It's just such a different dynamic than the money hungry ICO era. The ICO era was just chasing projects. And it was a good part of crypto because it brought in needed liquidity into the ecosystem. But at the same time, the NFT cultural movement is more amazing because you have actual artists and people that are involved in this new age of digital media. And that is a far more exciting use case of this technology than white papers in the ICO era.
Totally, man. That sort of speaks to me like to no end. I think when I see, like for me, it's really easy for me to sell fungible tokens, right? Because you can just buy them back. But I think when you've invested a lot of time in developing an identity, interacting with people with a certain sort of persona online and in the space, it's really hard to sort of give that up. And so I think
from experience.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think when I bumped into in New York, I basically just bought the punk that I currently have. I don't know if you remember the previous punk that I had, like the original Maxwell.
So badass. I'm like, why did you sell it, mate?
The eye patch with the knitted cap. Yeah. But it was basically at the top. So I cashed out and I felt guilty ever sort of since. But I, always knew that I had to get back in again. But I think, just that emotional sort of connection with NFTs is a connection that you make with other people. I mean, you can sort of see it at Punk's Brunch, right? I mean, it was just an amazing experience. I mean, just to even like to connect with you in person, somebody that I've just been hanging out with digitally online, and going, oh man, like you're Joshua. No shit, I'm Max. And you sort of like, oh shit, man, Max, right? So that was like a kind of cool moment, right? And I don't think people would appreciate that unless they're in the space and have, a sort of a profile picture identity play, which is different.
Yeah, no, it was it definitely a vibe, and yeah, you it's almost like selling one of your children in a way. And I know that sounds weird, but it that's how you feel emotionally when I've sold some of these punks, and I just shake my head. Actually, one of my punks, let's see, the one I sold for 15 ETH here, 6601. I absolutely love him. He's so clean. The straight edge guy that I was explaining at the beginning. I sold him to take profits, like, an idiot. And then, that Larva Labs ended up collecting him. And Larva Labs had sold their V1 punks, and then they bought him at the floor. And so it's like, wow, Matt and John collected one of my punks that I used to own. So that means something. It's just,
yeah, it does. But I mean, like, you sold it for 15 ETH. That was $21,000. I mean, that's a lot of money, right? Like, back then, when we're talking about NFTs, that's a lot of money for a JPEG. So there's no shame in that.
Still painful.
I know. All right. So in terms of your current punk that you use as your profile picture now, it's the 1641 with a Frown mole and orange knitted cap. Of all the punks that you had in your collection, why did this one resonate with you the most? Like, why was this your sort of, you go, yep, this is my identity online now?
Two reasons. I felt he kind of looked like me, and also that I like the Frown. Everything I think is portrayed to be happy in the world. And so it catches people off guard, especially when I use them on LinkedIn. I think people definitely are like, why would someone put a picture of someone frowning? Like it's not something that people do. And so that's why I connected with them, is because of that Frown. And I think people like to collect punks that look like them as well. And
totally. No, it's a cool punk,
one thing I gotta respect about the punks collection is it is a diverse collection, and it is very representative of society. And actually, Matt and John said this would represent the bar scene in London or something like that, the punk underground punk community of London. And so it's for the time, it was definitely ahead of its time.
Totally. All right, so just gonna go through a few questions here. So what's your best or favorite moment in NFTs for you personally, do you think?
When Gary V got in the space and joined our Discord, that's when I knew this was pretty serious and it was starting to really take off. And the backstory is that he had a bunch of streamers like Mr. Beast and Nadeshot and FaZe Banks go out and buy them on a stream back in like December. And then that January, he hopped in our Discord and the floor just went nuts. And that was when everyone was wrapping their head around NBA Top Shot launching, and NBA Top Shot was in a huge bubble. People were speculating on that stuff. And it just opened up this new primitive to the world. Like, if you look at crypto, there's three primitives to crypto that have driven waves of adoption. Number one was Bitcoin, and that was from 2009 to 2015. The second was Ethereum, which was 2015 to, I would say, like 2020. And that drove the ICO era and DeFi summer, and that drove in a bunch of people. And then the third wave of adoption is around NFTs, and that was from 2020 to today. And those are three primitives, and to be part of one of those primitives that early was exciting, because I was never that early to Bitcoin. And arguably, it was a year and a half after ETH was developed, so I wasn't early to that either. And I missed DeFi summer, so hey, I got NFTs. So yeah.
But that must have been a really good feeling, because I can sort of relate a little bit in that you felt an element of conviction behind what you were doing early on, getting in so early, and then all of a sudden you can sort of see, the euphoria and the floor prices pump so much, and you're just like, oh, this is like actually shit. This is like life-changing money for me now. So yeah, that was kind of cool. I sort of see that.
One thing I'll caveat that with is obviously it's worked out, but people in NFT land have a attention span this small. They're like, yo, why is not the floor not pumping after a month? And it's like, mate, I've been owning these things for 4 years before anything happened with them. 4 years. And you're talking to me about like 4 weeks, so I think people are kind of gilded in this way, or they just,
they're a bit spoiled.
Yeah, they're a bit spoiled. Like sit on something for 4 years, believe in it that much. And to my credit, I actually had them on a memory key as a key store backup, so they were quite secure. However, that memory key, I moved 2-3 times. I could have easily thrown that memory key out, and I knew they were there, but I just I didn't know what I owned. I knew they were there, but I just didn't know what I owned. And then once they started rising in value, get them on the ledger, get them into a very safe, secure location. So
that's cool. And then worst regret in NFTs, if any?
Yeah, selling some of these police punks, huge regrets. I sold here, let me pull them up. Punk2753. So he's got gold chain, gold earring. He's got the robber eyes, and he's a police punk. I've seen this on fractional, and I think it got fractionalized at like $2 million last time I saw, with potentially another punk.
That's insane.
Selling at 4.5. The story there is I had bought it at 0.68, and I listed it basically right away at 4.5. 2 days later, I listed it. So I was like, oh, no one's going to pay me 4.5 for this. And it didn't. So that was July 2017. It sat for almost 3 years until May 23rd, 2020, before someone bought it. So either the floor came up. One thing to note back at that time, the valuations in terms of traits that I described later or earlier, the deltas between them, they didn't exist back then. So back then, you buy all sorts of extremely valuable punks basically at the floor at the same price. Now, as a collection's been built out in terms of historical significance, data has been poured over it. People understand the market structure. Now you see all these deltas between the traits. But yeah, back then it was definitely mispriced, and that's why it transacted. So, and the VR punk, I listed them at 10 ETH. So I bought them at 0.74. Again, listed them at 10 ETH. Thought nothing of it. So July 10th, 2017, and then it was February 13th, 2021. He was transacted at 10 ETH. And I see some bids that I got along the way. In October 2020, I got a bid for 7 ETH. So I didn't really know or get notified of that, but yeah, so
man, it's tough, man. Like I feel for you because if you were holding it for 4 years and you sort of see a bit of a rally coming through, it's like, this is kind of crazy. It's time to cash out. But who would have known it would have gone this crazy, right? So no, I feel for you there, buddy.
Nah, it's all
right. So and then I guess do you have any sort of the biggest lesson or insight on NFTs that you sort of learned? I think for me, it's been definitely humbling, this whole space, but anything that sort of comes to mind for you?
I think you got to take some profits along the way. Definitely. Don't overpay for a picture in this macro environment. Yeah, don't blow your brains out with these things. And I think just that the punks are history. They will always be there. They'll be always historical. So if things are getting ahead of them in terms of valuation, I would be short those other collections and long punks every day of the week.
Well said. And then do you have a favorite punk personality out there that you sort of think that adds a lot of value to, I guess, insights and educating the general sort of wider ecosystem and NFT ecosystem.
Yeah, I really like Stray Bits. He was pretty instrumental in helping me remember a lot of the early what it was like, because I chatted with him afterwards. Obviously, Maxwell, I always thought you were like just some gun Wall Street guy and he got into a punk. I'm like, the fact that this guy's liking and retweeting my tweets is like amazing.
Sorry to disappoint you, mate.
No, you're a legend. FaZe Banks, I feel like FaZe Banks and Nadeshot, who are two big esports streamers, they get it. They are really involved with culture. FaZe Clan, it went on the NASDAQ at $1 billion valuation, and FaZe Banks was, really excited about his punks. And he speaks to them well and understands what he's looking at. Gary Vee, obviously, he credentialized the space to me.
Totally. And
really put it out there to the world that, hey, this is like no different than collecting a rare LeBron James basketball card that's worth $2 million. And he helped people understand like the delta between the card only being paper and ink and being worth $2 million. And he helped the world understand the valuation of why these things are trading at these price points. So I admire that. So yeah, those are my peeps.
No, good picks. I think Gary Vee's a huge one for the space, right? I know he had a little bit of pushback when he came out with V Friends. Everybody sort of came out and said this is fee grabby and also all that type of stuff. But I think he sort of
but financially, V Friends has done fantastic. Totally. So I minted a V Friend because of him, and it did really well.
What did you mint?
I mint it was called Toronto versus St. Louis. Toronto versus St. Louis. So it was just an image of a blue jay and a robin in a tree.
Okay.
And I think it was a play off the Toronto Blue Jays and the St. Louis Cardinals, which are two baseball teams. But yeah, I bought it because it had Toronto in it. And I was like, obviously I love Toronto. And I don't know what his connection is to the city, but I do know that he's starting to do partnerships with like Reebok, which has the V Friends logo on the tongue of the shoe. And the sole of the shoe is the actual aspiring alpaca NFT is in the sole of the shoe. And there's 40 owners of this NFT because they made multiple versions of one character. And so those 40 owners now have their NFT on a shoe that's being distributed by Reebok. Like stuff like
Crazy.
That, I think is, and the shoe looks
cool.
dope. The shoe looks iconic. The shoe looks good. It's in the V Friends yellow. Like, you can fade Gary Vee all day long, but his application of this technology is second to none.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. Cool. And then, what's one word that you would describe punk culture for you?
Just iconic. That's it.
Iconic.
I know. Beautiful. That's so lame. That's still. I wasn't ready for that question. Yeah, iconic. Yeah,
iconic's a good word.
It's the pixelated art thing is defined art for sure, and it's that this contract existed before the NFT standard, the ERC standard, was even created. So these guys understood something about Ethereum before even the creators of Ethereum understood it. So yeah,
it's pretty sweet. And then if you could pass on a message to the next owner of your current punk, what would you like to say to them?
Yeah, I sold one. It's not pictured here, but one of the other ones. Just hold on to history. That's it. You're not buying it to flip it. You're not buying it to make money. You're buying it to hold on to history. And if you have a good financial exit from it, congrats. But I know a lot of people sold their NFTs and just regret it to this day. So yeah, just don't regret when you sell it.
I think after this conversation, I'm going to diamond hand my punk for a while. But Josh, this was super fun, man. Like I think it's good rifting with punks with you. But But I think just before we sort of close out, I mean, do you want to just share with everybody, I guess, what you're working on and or anything that you sort of find interesting in, and and how they can sort of find you?
Yeah, so I work for Mycelium. It's a protocol on Arbitrum where we do margin trading among products. And yeah, young guys out of Australia, a good group of guys. So go to my profile, check out Mycelium. Consider trading on chain versus trading on a centralized exchange. We think it's important that that liquidity comes into the decentralized ecosystem, aka Arbitrum. We think also that Arbitrum could be the winner for layer 2. It looks pretty good at this point. And yeah, you can find me at mint_Josh. So MYNT_Josh. And hit me in the DMs if you've heard this. I'll always love chatting with people. So thanks, Maxwell.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time tonight, mate. And really enjoyed the chat. And hopefully we can rift again soon, man. But thank you, everybody, for listening. This concludes the first episode of PunkCast. And hopefully we'll be back again soon with another cool punk. Ciao.
Thanks, Maxwell.